Book of Heaven, Volume 16, Part 4. October 4th, 1923. The divine will is everywhere, but not as life of the creature. In order for it to become life of the soul must make her will disappear in it. I felt myself being destroyed by the pain of his privation, with the sad thought that he would no longer come to me. Oh, how piercing it was to think that I would not again see he who forms the whole of my life, my happiness, all my good. While I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior and told me, "My daughter, how can I leave you if my will is imprisoned in your soul? And giving life to all your acts, it carries out its life as within its own center. So at one point of the earth there is my life. Ah, if this life of mine were not there on earth, my justice would pour itself out with such fury as to annihilate it." On hearing this, I said, "My Jesus, your will is everywhere. There is not one point at which it is not present. And you are saying that it is imprisoned in me?" And Jesus, "It is indeed everywhere, with its immensity, with its all-seeingness, and with its power. Like queen, it subjects itself to itself, letting no one escape its empire. But as life, in which the creature forms her life, to carry out her life in the life of my will, and form the life of the divine will on earth, it does not exist. For many who do not do it, it is as if my will did not exist. It happens as if someone had water in his room, but would not drink it, or fire, but he would not go near it in order to get warm, or bread, but he would not eat it. In spite of the fact that he has with himself these elements that can give life to man, by not taking them, he can die of thirst, of cold, and of hunger. Others take them rarely, and are weak and ill. Others every day, and these are healthy and robust. Therefore, when one possesses a good, everything is in whether the human will wants to take that good, and how it wants to take it. And according to how one makes use of it, so does one receive its effects. So it is with my will. In order for it to become life of the soul must make her will disappear in mine. Her will must no longer exist. My will, as primary act, must take over all of her acts, and it shall give itself to the soul, now as water to quench her thirst with its divine and celestial waters, now as fire, not only to warm her, but to destroy what is human, and to rebuild the life of my will in her, now as food, to nourish her and render her strong and robust. Oh, how difficult it is to find a creature who would surrender all her rights, to give my will alone the right to reign. Almost all want to keep something of their own will, and therefore, not reigning in them completely, my will cannot form its life in all creatures. October 16th, 1923. So that the divine will may descend upon earth, it is necessary that the human will, emptied of all that is human, rise up to heaven. The task of the soul who lives in the divine will. The pain of the privation of my Jesus concentrates more inside my poor heart. How long the nights without him! They seem to be eternal nights without Jesus, without stars, and without sun. The only thing left to me is his lovable will, in which I abandon myself, and I find my rest in the thick darkness that surrounds me. Ah, Jesus, Jesus, come to my tormented heart, for I cannot go on without you. Now, while I was swimming in the immense sea of the pain of his privation, my Jesus moved in my interior, and taking my hands in his, he pressed them tightly to his heart and told me, "My daughter, so that my will may descend upon earth, it is necessary that your will rise up to heaven. And so that it may rise up to heaven and live in the celestial fatherland, it is necessary to empty it of all that is human, that is not holy, pure, and upright. Nothing enters into heaven to live common life with us if it is not completely divinized and transformed completely into ourselves. Nor can my divine will descend upon earth and carry out its life as within its own center if it does not find the human will emptied of everything, so as to fill it with all the goods that my will contains. It shall be nothing other than a most thin veil that shall serve me to cover myself and to dwell inside of it, almost like a consecrated host, in which I form my life. I do all the good I want. I pray. I suffer. I enjoy. And the host does not oppose. It leaves me free. Its office is to be there to keep me hidden, and to comply in mute silence to preserve my sacramental life. This is the point we are at. Your will entering heaven, and mine descending upon earth. Therefore yours must no longer have life. It must have no reason to exist. The same happened to my humanity. Though it had a human will, this will was all intent on giving life to the divine will. It never arbitrated itself, not even to breathe on its own. But its breath, also, it would take and give in the divine will. And this is why the eternal will reigned in my humanity on earth as it does in heaven. It lived its terrestrial life in it, and my human will, fully sacrificed to the divine, impetrated that, at the appropriate time, the divine would descend upon earth to live in the midst of creatures, just as it lives in heaven. Don't you want to give my will its first place on earth? Now, while he was saying this, I seemed to find myself in heaven, and as though from one single point, I could see all generations. And prostrating myself before the Supreme Majesty, I took the reciprocal love of the divine persons, their perfect adoration, the sanctity, always one, of their will. And I offered them in the name of all as requital of love, adoration, submission, and union that every creature should give to her Creator. I wanted to unite heaven and earth, Creator and creature, that they might embrace and exchange the kiss of the union of their wills. Then my Jesus added, "This is your task, to live in our midst, and to make all that is ours your own, and to give it to us on behalf of your brothers, so that drawn by what is ours, we may be bound to the human generations, and give them once again the supreme kiss of the union of their will with ours, that we gave them in creation. October 20th, 1923. The soul is the field in which Jesus works, sows, and harvests. I felt all annihilated within myself. His privations cast me into the most profound humiliation. Without Jesus, I feel the interior of my soul devastated. It seems to me that all the good declines and dies. My Jesus, how hard is your privation! Oh, how my heart bleeds in seeing everything dying in me, because he who is life, and who alone can give life, is not with me. Then, while I was in this state, my most sweet Jesus came out from within my interior, and placing his hand upon my heart, and pressing it strongly, he told me, "My daughter, why do you afflict yourself so much? Abandon yourself in me, and let me do. And when it seems to you that everything declines and dies, your Jesus shall make everything rise again, but more beautiful and more fecund. You must know that the soul is my field in which I work, sow, and harvest. But my favorite field is the soul who lives in my will. In this field, my work is delightful. I do not get muddy when I sow, because my will has converted it into a field of light. Its ground is virgin, pure, and celestial, and I amuse myself very much in sowing little lights into it, almost like dew that forms the sun of my will. Oh, how beautiful it is to see this field of the soul all covered with many drops of light, and as they gradually grow, many suns shall form. This sight is enchanting. All heaven is enraptured at the sight of it, and they are all attentive on looking at the celestial farmer who cultivates this field with such great majesty, and who possesses a seed so noble as to convert it into sun. Now, my daughter, this field is mine, and I do with it whatever I want. Once these suns have formed, I collect them and take them to heaven as the most beautiful conquest of my will, and then I return to the work of my field. So I put everything upside down, and the little daughter of my will feels everything ending, everything dying within her. In the place of the suns, so refulgent with light, she sees the drops of light that I am sowing, and she thinks that everything is perishing. How you deceive yourself! This is the new harvest that must be prepared. And since I want to make it more beautiful than the previous one, and make it larger, so as to be able to double my harvest, at first sight, the work seems to be more difficult, and the soul suffers more. But those pains are like strokes of the hoe into the ground that make the seed sink deeper down, so as to make it germinate more safely, with greater fecundity and beauty. Don't you see, when a field is harvested, how squalid and poor it remains? But wait until it is sown again, and you shall see it more flowery than before, Therefore let me do, and you, by living in my will, shall always be at work with me. We shall sow the little drops of light together, and we shall compete to see who sows more. So we shall amuse ourselves, now in sowing, now in resting, but always together. I know what your strongest concern is, that I might leave you. No, I do not leave you. The one who lives in my will is inseparable from me. And my Jesus, in the past you used to tell me that when you would not come, it was because you wanted to chastise the people. And now it is not because of this that you don't come, but because of something else. And Jesus, as though sighing, they shall come. The chastisements shall come. Ah, if you knew. Having said this, he disappeared. October 30th, 1923. The soul who lives in the divine will is nourished by the flames of Jesus. She must be filtered through the most pure light of the divine will, and must be exposed to the rays of its burning and eternal sun, so as to be deified in God. I live always embittered, and with my heart petrified by the pain of the privation of my sweet Jesus. I feel I am without life, because he who is true life is not with me. Oh, how often I repeat, tell me, oh my only and highest good, where did you direct your steps, so that by following them I may find you? Ah, from afar I kiss those hands of yours, that, with so much love, used to embrace me and press me to your heart. I adore and kiss that face that, with so much grace and beauty, would let itself be seen by me. And now it hides and is far away from me. Tell me, where are you? Which way should I take, so as to come and reach you? Tell me, what should I do? Where have I offended you, that you run far away from me? Yet you told me that you would never leave me, and now you leave me. Ah, Jesus, Jesus, come back to the one who cannot live without you, to your little daughter, to the poor exiled one. But who can say all my laments and the nonsense I spoke? Then, in the meantime, I felt I was losing consciousness, and I saw a dove, all afire, that was agonizing, and someone near it, who with his burning breath was feeding the dove with his flames, in order to nourish it, preventing it from taking any other food, holding it tightly and so close to his mouth that it could do nothing other than breathe and swallow the flames that came from him. And the poor dove, agonized and turned into those flames with which it was nourished. I was surprised in seeing this, and my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, why do you fear that I might leave you? In order to leave you, I should leave myself, which I cannot do. As much power as I have, I do not have the power to detach from myself. The same for the one who does my will. Since he becomes inseparable from me, I lack the power to detach from him. Not only this, but I keep nourishing him with my own flames. Have you not seen that dove, all afire? It was the image of your soul, and he who was feeding it with his burning breath was I, who delight so much in nourishing the one who lives in my will with only the flames unleashed by my heart through my breath. Don't you know that the one who lives in my will must be filtered through its most pure light? And to be filtered is more than to be put under a press, because even though the press smashes everything to pieces, it lets everything out, skin and seeds that settle down at the bottom and leave always something cloudy. On the other hand, when something is filtered, especially then if it is filtered through the thick light of my will, there is no danger that it might deposit something cloudy. Rather, everything is clear, similar to the clearness of the light through which it has been filtered. And this is a great honor for the soul who lives in my will, that whether she thinks, speaks, loves, and so forth, my will takes on the commitment to filter whatever she does through its most pure light. And this is necessary, so that in everything she does, there may be no distinction from what we do, but all things may hold hands and share their likeness. Now, as he was saying this, I found myself outside of myself, inside a garden, and tired, I sat down under a tree to rest. But the rays of the sun darted through me in such a way that I felt I was burning. I wanted to go under some other tree, a thicker one, that would produce more shade, so as not to be hurt by the sun. But a voice, it seems to me that it was my beloved Jesus, prevented me from doing so, saying, "The one who lives in my will must be exposed to the rays of the burning and eternal sun in order to live of light, see nothing but light, and touch nothing but light. This leads to the deification of the soul. Only when the soul is all deified in God, then can it be said that she lives in my will? Rather, come out from under this tree and stroll in this celestial Eden of my will, so that, scanning you thoroughly, the sun may convert you into light and may give you the final brushstroke of the deification in God." I began to stroll, but as I was doing this, obedience called me back into myself. November 5th, 1923. Jesus forms his real life, not mystical life, in the soul who lives in his will, as in a living host. I was feeling oppressed because of the privation of my sweet Jesus, with the addition that the confessor, because I had not had the trust to open up with him, and because I was bad, had denied me the absolution. So having received Holy Communion, I abandoned myself in the arms of my most sweet Jesus, and I said to him, "My love, help me. Do not abandon me. You know in what a state I find myself because of your privation. And still, instead of help, creatures add pains upon pains. Without you, I have no one else, either with you or on my own, crying over my hard lot of having lost you. This should push you more not to leave me alone, to at least keep company with a poor abandoned one who lives dying in her hard exile. Therefore you, who are the highest priest, give me the absolution. Tell me that you forgive the sins that are in my soul. Let me hear your most sweet voice that gives me life and forgiveness. Now, while I was pouring out my pain with Jesus, he made himself seen in my interior, and the sacramental veils formed as though a mirror, and Jesus was inside of it, alive and real. And my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, this mirror is the accidents of the bread which keep me imprisoned within them. I form my life in the host, but the host does not give me anything, not one affection, not a heartbeat, not the littlest I love you. It is as though dead for me. I remain alone, without a shadow of requital, and therefore my love is almost impatient to go out, to shatter this glass, descending into hearts, in order to find in them that requital which the host does not know how to give me, nor can it do so. But do you know where I find my true requital? In the soul who lives in my will. As I descend into her heart, immediately I consume the accidents of the host, because I know that more noble accidents, more dear to me, are ready to imprison me, so as not to let me go out of that heart that shall give me not only life within itself, but life for life. I shall not be alone, but with my most faithful company. We shall be two hearts palpitating together. We shall love united. Our desires shall be one. So I remain in her, and there I live life, alive and real, just as I do in the most holy sacrament. But do you know what these accidents are that I find in the soul who does my will? They are her acts, done in my volition, that more than accidents lay themselves around me and imprison me, but inside a noble and divine prison, not a dark one, because her acts, done in my will, more than sun, illuminate her and warm her. Oh, how happy I feel to form my real life in her, because I feel as if I were inside my celestial royal palace. Look at me inside your heart. How happy I am. How I delight and feel the purest joys. And I, my beloved Jesus, isn't what you are telling something new and singular? That in the one who lives in your will, you form your real life? Isn't it rather the mystical life that you form in the hearts that possess your grace? And Jesus, no, it is not mystical life. As for those who possess my grace, but do not live with their acts identified with my volition, they do not have sufficient material to form the accidents in order to imprison me. It would be as if the priest did not have the host and wanted to pronounce the words of the consecration. He could say them, but would say them to the empty space. My sacramental life would certainly not have existence. This is how I am in the hearts that, though they may possess my grace, do not live completely in my will. I am in them by grace, but not in reality. And I, my love, but how can it be that you can live really in the soul who lives in your will? And Jesus, my daughter, do I perhaps not live in the sacramental host, alive and real, in body, blood, soul, and divinity? And why do I live in the host, in body, blood, soul, and divinity? Because there is not a will that opposes mine. If I found in the host a will opposed to mine, I would form neither real nor perennial life in it. And this is also the reason why the sacramental accidents are consumed when creatures receive me, because I do not find a human will united with me in such a way as to want to lose its will in order to acquire mine, but I find a will that wants to act, that wants to do things on its own. So I make my little visit, and I leave. On the other hand, for the one who lives in my will, my volition and hers are one. And if I do this in the host, how much more can I do it in her? More so, since I find a heartbeat, an affection, my return and my interest, that I do not find in the host. To the soul who lives in my will, my real life within her is necessary. Otherwise, how could she live in my volition? Ah, you do not want to understand that the sanctity of living in my will is a sanctity completely different from the other sanctities. Except for the crosses, the mortifications, the necessary acts of life that, done in my will, embellish the soul more, it is nothing other than the life of the blessed in heaven, who, because they live in my will, by virtue of it, have me within each one of them, as if I were for each one alone, alive and real, and not mystically, but really dwelling within them. And just as this could not be called life of heaven if they did not have me within them as their own life, and their happiness would be neither complete nor perfect if even a tiny particle of my life were missing in them. In the same way, for the one who lives in my will would be neither full nor perfect in her, because my real life that emits this will would be missing. It is true that these are all prodigies of my love, even more, the prodigy of prodigies that my will has kept within itself until now, and that it now wants to issue, in order to achieve the primary purpose of the creation of man. Therefore, my first real life I want to form in you. On hearing this, I said, "Ah, my love, Jesus, yet I feel so bad because of all these contrasts, and you know it. It is true that this serves me to abandon myself more into your arms, and to ask from you what they do not give me. But in spite of this, I feel a breath of disturbance that troubles the peace of my soul. And you are saying that you want to form your real life in me? Oh, how far I am from this." And Jesus again, "Daughter, do not worry about this. What I want is that you put nothing of your own, and that you obey as much as you can. It is known that all other sanctities, that is, those of obedience and of other virtues, are not exempt from pettiness, disturbance, conflicts, and waste of time that prevent the forming of a beautiful sun. At the most, they form a little star. Only the sanctity of my will is exempt from these miseries. And besides, my will encloses all the sacraments and their effects. Therefore, abandon yourself completely in my will. Make it your own, and you shall receive the effects of the absolution, or of anything else that you might be denied. So I recommend to you, do not waste time, because by wasting time, you come to hamper my real life that I am forming in you. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 16, Part 4. Fiat.